Ladies and gentlemen, we approach the worst time to be alive ever, outside of the Black Plague, and well, because election season is coming up. Generally speaking, I don't have. I mean, I'm going to complain a lot, but do I really have the right to? Not particularly, I don't think. But but nevertheless, if you pay any attention to media, or the talking heads just get particularly gnarly around this time of year. Yeah. It starts becoming, but it did give me pause to think. I actually did kind of have a slight epiphany. Well, I don't remember who I was listening to, but I kind of, and I'm for it as an alpha male myself, and I'm throwing that out there to hopefully get a bunch of creepy sycophantic followers that I'll regret having, even if I make money off them. But as a known alpha male myself, I've come to a realization, and with election season in the air, I have discovered that voting is beta male behavior. And I'll explain why. You're picking someone else to tell you what to do, right? Like, now, you choosing them feels like agency, but see, it's not. You're picking a leader. You're going, I'm too wussy to start my own country. Will you just please run this shitty one we already live in for me? And, you think you get to feel like a big man deciding who, but you're just really sitting there like a little girl in a Sunday school dress, and you got two wishing wells in front of you, and you throw the penny in the wishing well, and you go, I hope my favorite one wins, and then I'll have a new daddy. There's nothing manly about that. There's nothing that says I'm a born leader, like going like, who I hope this guy gets to tell me how it is. It's like, are you kidding? Nothing is more beta than that. Nothing is more beta than flying a flag with someone else's name on your truck. Did that person buy your truck for you, or did you pay for it yourself like a big boy? Put Josh 2024 on there. Let everybody know that's, even if your dad bought it for you, which probably. But if you're Josh Jr., you get the idea. You're running. You're being in charge. You're representing your own tribe. If you're gonna wear a T-shirt with someone's face on it, it should be yours. Tell the world who's the most important guy in the world. This guy right here. I'm just saying, just don't be a pussy. Just start your own country. Start small with a cult, and just don't vote. Leave voting up to the ladies. And the wienery guys that want to win their heart, but you're better than that. If you're a big tough guy alpha male, you absolutely shouldn't be voting. Think of how that makes you look. So I just want to really throw that out there, that if you're still choosing someone else to lead you and not leading yourself,
what if we just turn the debates into a game show and put it on NBC called Who's Your Daddy?
Oh. That would be nice.
Yeah. Trump would kind of have an advantage just because he's already kind of like game show tested.
Is a game show host.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'd be, as gross as it is, I'd be more inclined to watch that.
Yeah, there needs to be more like sirens that go off and timeout buzzers. And remember that game show that I think it was either it was like a late night MTV thing, and I swear it was like the late 80s or something. It was called Remote Control. And like you'd be in like a big chair. It was the most like the walls have stickers all over them, and it's a big couch with boogers on it, and you're watching TV like Beavis and Butthead, and if you get the question wrong, like the couch goes like sliding backwards into the wall, and there's smoke, fog machine comes out, and monsters get you, and it's like fucking Dave Coulier or someone was always like, whoa, like you pushed the wrong button on the remote control. We'll be right back. And it was like super dumb, but that would be the right.
Everything you just said makes so much more sense than how we actually elect people.
Yeah.
Like that would be incredible.
The democratic process in this country has gotten to be very, very, very different from super sloppy double dare. And I find that to be a huge problem. And and speaking of which, we might be coming back around to that a little bit. If you watched the last episode that my good friend Chris joined me on, we were talking about the adult baby diaper community and the candidates we have are definitely hoving into that territory age-wise. Whether they're into it or not, it's an inevitability that there's going to be diapers. And I think, the super sloppy double dare comes to mind. I think two old guys with full diapers on stage.
We put both of them in diapers and turn it into a fucking Japanese game show.
Oh, yeah.
Like one of the ones where it's robot. Because I've also heard a lot of people say that we should have Joe Rogan host the debates, which I don't know that's necessarily like a good or a bad idea. I don't really care.
It'd be better if you just interviewed each guy. And then we just watched those consecutively, and then maybe that's what the debate is.
I only bring that up, though, is that you get Joe Rogan to host the debates, but you turn it into a combination adult baby diaper lover Japanese fear factor. So you fact check him in real time, and it's like, you lied about that.
Fear fact checker, we call it.
Yeah, and so now you're going to eat these 4 ghost peppers.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, if you lie, you have to eat bugs. Like, that's the rule. Like,
yes, that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And even shit like that, you make him eat fucking hot peppers. It's like, dude, I'm not making it 20 minutes without shitting my pants.
No.
You know what I mean? Let alone, like, somebody that's 80.
Dude, neither of those guys can eat hot stuff. I mean, their age being one thing, and I don't know as much about like Biden's past, but it's like I'm pretty sure he comes from a pretty waspy fucking white family. It's like they're not eating hot stuff, and Trump eats well done steak. He is not eating like a fucking level 20 capsaicin like.
Damn, yeah. Or like that hot one. Yeah, that's what they do. They interview them on hot ones.
That's
they make
the
them
way.
Both wear a diaper.
Well,
and then
for everyone's safety, I think.
Yeah, and then at the very end, where they always walk around in front of the camera and they wave in front of the podium, and then it's like they're just wearing the diapers and it's like running down their leg.
Oh, God, yeah. Just with a full load in their shorts. Like, yeah.
It'd be incredible.
Hot ones would be.
Why do we not do this? I just don't understand.
Because we were sold a false promise of the future by, I think, not necessarily the powers that be, but like, we live in a sci-fi dystopia, and it's the boringest possible version of that. It's nothing like Total Recall. It's nothing like Running Man. It's nothing that would have Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's a lot like RoboCop without the robots with machine guns and stuff. Intentionally like raising crime rates and like giving criminals access to fully automatic handguns and passing them out to kids to lower the property values of a neighborhood so BlackRock can buy everything up. It's just got everything except the Ed 209. The fun part. Yeah. Like it just has the actual underhanded. Like, we don't have, like, Clarence Boddicker. It's just, like, teenage gangs, like, posting stuff on TikTok and people, like, moving out of their houses. Like, but there's no, I'll buy that for $1. Like, we just haven't gone, like, I've been calling it, and it won't stick. And I'm just upset about that. But I keep referring to this as the boring 20s. Like, because it's, I feel like people, you know what I mean? Like, it's not... Like, it's like a joke on the Roaring 20s, by the way, if you're not terribly educated, the other 1920s. But those were, like, fun. Like, those were full of, like, speakeasies and absinthe and Tommy guns and, like, this weird time between World War I and II where everything was all, like, crazy and fucked up. And it's like...
There's nothing to do but drink and kill people.
Yeah. And now it's just like, oh, film yourself stealing a Kia, and then like you're gonna be oppressed by this giant corporation that has no giant robots involved in it whatsoever. Like there's no time machines. It's the future, and it's the scary, shitty future. But there's the technology is just everyone's on their phone too much, I guess, and it's not very good for you. And AI is something that's going interesting places, but it's like it's just dull. Like it's just we expect that like the trade-off between, as I was just, I've mentioned it on the podcast before, I was kind of describing Has Been Hotel to Chris, which you should all go watch that. It's very amusing. Anyone that watches me yell would probably like that, I think. But I think they're developing a point towards the end of the first season of like, hell, at least you get to do whatever you want. Like, it's fun. It's like heaven is just like it's like going to the Galleria, It's like, well, it's nice, but it's still just kind of like, if you pull your pants down, they're bumping you down to hell or whatever, and you're going to be like accosted by the ghosts of murderers and drug addicts. But it's like you can murder and do drugs, and that's fun,
Yeah.
And that our current time, and this is to the point you're making, is like we elected a reality show host president, and he tried to overthrow the government with his like cult follower. I mean, that sounds like so much fun. Like it absolutely sounds. If I like had a time machine and like went back and was like, yeah, you know, we have all this unregulated digital currency, and like you could just tell a computer to make you a picture, and there was like this fat incontinent reality show guy somehow got all these people to think he's the second coming of Jesus, and then tried to burn down the nation's capital and all this stuff, and you're like, wow, you guys are living in like the most interesting time ever. And it's like, yeah, I guess, but I still just like go to work every day, and I mean, you know, work's reasonably amusing for Chris and I, but for most people it's not. There's no flying cars, there's no talking monkeys, there's just there ain't shit that we were looking forward to.
Why do you think we get such bad choices? Do you think that's a product of that we have a system that where essentially like the most narcissistic, horrible people are the ones most incentivized to get to the top?
Yeah. It's the same. It's the same thing with like, why is no one we know a billionaire? And it's like, because those people are fucking vampires. They're just monstrous. Like, to actually become the Wolf of Wall Street, you have to be such a rotten, awful person. Although he's a bad example, because like, it seemed, at least from that movie, which I'm sure is accurate, that his employees, even the low-level phone answering ones, you know, were riding the secretaries around naked while shooting guns off. And it's like, okay, well, that's what I want for us right now, as far as like, but you know, most of them are just, you know, people like Elon Musk, who they make all their money, and then they just go on the internet and talk about how like women aren't having enough babies or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's insipid. Like, who cares?
Can I say as a quick aside that Leonardo DiCaprio and Jonah Hill should have gotten an Oscar simply for the scene of them rolling around on the floor doing the Quaaludes?
Yeah.
That was some of the best, and I'm like, I know it sounds like I'm joking, but I'm not.
No,
like,
it's
that was
incredible. The depiction in I'll tell you, I'll agree. The depiction of drugs in film and TV is often pretty inaccurate.
Yes.
And there's two ways it goes. It's either just stupid wrong or fun wrong. Fun wrong would be like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where it's like, okay, but it's intentional. Like, there's lizard people in the bar and everything, but it's like, it's a blast, so who cares?
Right.
And then there's everything else where it's just kind of like, oh, I did weed, and like you start hearing a sitar playing or whatever. I'm like, no, that's not what this is really like. Wolf of Wall Street was just so, whenever they depicted people on coke, whenever they depicted people on Quaaludes, like when that other scene where when Jonah Hill started having the idea about the guy who had the shoe company, that was their IPO, he's like, Michael, and they're like, come on, buddy. He's like, ah! He's like just starting to have this, like, his brain is trying to put this idea together, and they're all on drugs, and I've like, we've all been there. Like, that felt so organic and realistic to the whole, like, a room full of people that have been doing drugs all day kind of aesthetic, which I'm pretty familiar with. I think maybe a lot of us are. Yeah, and can I make one? Because I showed Alexis that movie recently. She'd never seen it, and like, it's a little long. That's the only thing. But the first part of it, when everything's going good, is almost a movie on its own. It's really great. And boy, did I forget how fucking hot Margot Robbie is. Like, because she's naked in that movie. She's a fantastic actor. And I love her as Harley Quinn. As much as that first Suicide Squad movie was kind of dumb, it wasn't her fault. And the second one was actually kind of great, and she's really good in it. And she was really good at Barbie. Was a fantastic movie, I think. She's good at everything. She's a great actor, so I kind of hate saying this, but it's like that was like kind of her first big movie, and she just comes out in the boots and nothing, and you're like, oh right. I also and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like she's like just like a really good actor, and I'm not like reducing that down to like hotness. But unfortunately for a lot of people that are just trying their hardest, you're not going to be able to turn me into anything other than like a male primate. Like we can make up all the rules we want, but I'm still going to be like, my God, though. And you know what? Maybe that's a positive. I could be a positive role model, sort of in that way, where I'm like, I'm not going to reduce her to just a hot piece of ass, but I'm not going to discount the fact that she very much is. Good Lord. Like, I forgot. I mean, I am a married man, but I'm not saying I can't possibly be bought. But it would take, that's like paying a drug dealer off with a bar of actual gold bullion. I mean, that no one's handing me that. Yeah. But it was just outrageously, like, that movie is really, really good. Is that that's not a Scorsese film, is it?
Scorsese.
Okay,
I think so, yeah.
Because it's better than it would have been if someone else had tackled that story, I think. Like, Scorsese, I think, was the right man for it. There's just enough crime, just enough drugs, just enough too much runtime.
Yeah, well, but the weird thing, though, is that it almost feels like that's where Scorsese excels, is when it's movies that have to be a little bit more drawn out because it needs to have a little bit more story. He, like Goodfellas,
like years like kind of go by.
Yeah, where he does a pretty good job of doing long movies that have a lot of substance that don't necessarily feel like they drag out as long as. I mean, I'm not saying they don't feel long.
It's just that some do and some don't. I think the real humdingers are like, I love Casino. Casino, I think, is my favorite Scorsese movie.
I was going to say that might be my favorite, too.
It's just, everyone is so great in it, and I love, like, Vegas, and people open the door with his fucking head, like, just that one, I know it is long, but I kind of, my ass doesn't fall asleep, because I'm on the edge of my seat, baby, like, but it's just got everything I love in it, and it
I remember that was a wild scene when I was a kid, the first time I saw it, when it was just like they're sitting at the bar during the day and Joe Pesci just stabs that guy in the neck with the pen.
Yeah. No, everything in that was like, you motherfucker, you. Trying to make a fuck out of me. Like, he's so on it. You made me pop your goddamn eyeball out of your skull just for that guy. And De Niro's wearing, like, all this. Like, I've tried to get suits, the colors that he has. Like, he starts like a weird, like, and a man after my own heart. They give him his own weird, like, daytime talk show just so he could, like, scream about his enemies list and yell about all this incriminating crime shit. And, like, that, I guess that, like, really happened. It's amazing.
Well, shout out to Joe Pesci, too, because, I mean, he played such a fucking psycho in Goodfellas that, like, the idea that he could somehow up that in Casino and play a completely different gangster that was almost even more ruthless, it was actually, like, very impressive.
Yeah, it is kind of funny how, like...
And very different. They didn't feel like he was playing the same character either, which is also, like...
I've watched those movies.
It would have been very easy to do.
I've watched them literally one after the other before, and I didn't feel too terribly like, oh, it's all just blending together. Like, yeah, he's kind of a hothead, but it's just such a different situation. And, like... Yeah, I really like, I think The Departed is one of my other big ones. I haven't watched that in a while, but that was, Nicholson in that is, I'm always going to have the best place in my heart for the 89 Nicholson Joker. Yeah. And, like, the only character he plays that's almost a little more unhinged than that is probably the guy in The Departed.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Also, in the Departed, they play that song from the Dropkick Murphys. The
shipping up to Boston.
Yeah, I'm shipping up. I went to it was like a little after that movie came out, and there was like at Harriet Island there was some kind of Irish fest, and I went with this little goth punk chick who was kind of like, yeah, just come with me so that I have a big dude with me, and I'm like, that's the way into somebody's short skirt a lot of the time, and it was. So I'm like happy to be there. I didn't really care that much, but I was like, oh, I know who the Dropkick Murphys are, so that'll be fun. Yeah. And they played at this thing, and it was free. So it was just, I mean, beer was like $9, and this was like over a decade ago. So I mean, it was it's not exactly free, but Yeah. And they like brought the mayor of St. Paul up on stage, who like chugged a Guinness with him and stuff, and like it was like pretty wild. But I didn't realize how many. It was like all muddy. I didn't realize how many people were there until they went to play that song, and I have never seen a bigger out of control like kilts and boots punk fucking circle pit thing. It was like I had to like I kind of grabbed who I was with and kind of backed us out of there. I'm like, whoa, this is getting like way out of. That was I was probably in my late 20s. I was still could be in a giant mosh pit, and I was like, no. This is like, when they went to go do that live, it was like just a year or two after that movie came out, and like it got fucking wild. Yeah, they're just drinking with the mayor on stage, and just like, just like people were. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But
speaking of great things on film, John, did you happen to see Robert F. Kennedy's Super Bowl ad?
I did, and I find it to be puzzling at best. Like the only way that anybody knows the significance of that commercial is if you're like either like maybe some sort of like presidential historian, or if you're obsessed with the TV show Mad Men, or you're actually no younger than 83 years old. Because that came out in, it was 60 or 61. That was a real John F. Kennedy campaign commercial. So probably 60. When did he get elected? Was it 60? Yeah. So 60, if not 59. And, like, I think it was 60. So, like, and again, I had never seen that before, except for the fact that, again, in the first season of Mad Men, one of the things our agency gets hired to do is work on the Nixon campaign, and there's a whole scene where they're comparing the commercial, because no one had put out a presidential commercial like that before, where it's like, Kennedy, 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 like, and it was that exact commercial. It was just, they just pasted RFK's face, they didn't change anything about it at all, and it was, like, amazing back then. Now, I don't know what the hell he's doing, but, like,
it was like the intro of a Disney movie in 1960.
Yeah.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
And they're like, happy days are here again. Like, it was a very... Well, because the thing was, and this was in the... You know, obviously in real life there was no... I'm sure there was some Madison Avenue agency, but there was no Don Draper in real life or whatever. But, like, in the show, they were working on Nixon's campaign, and they starkly contrasted. They were like, well, what's our ad like? And it's just this thing with Nixon with his arms folded, and there's no music, and he's like... I wanted to talk to you about things that make sense. Dollars and cents. Your dollars and cents. When it comes to taxation and it was just depressing and shit. And it's like, Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy. And like Kennedy's was like in color. And it was just like Nixon. By the way, I sang, Alexis didn't know what I was doing, but I sang this song right when I heard the commercial, because in Mad Men, one of the characters is like, well, we could make Nixon a song like, Ethel, go get the ice pick. That Nixon guy is on TV again. Like, they should have used that, but it was funny. But yeah, like, so okay, I recognized it. Because I'm obsessed with that show. But a lot of people probably are just like, oh, it's like The Sopranos. It's great, but we watched it like once when it was really happening. Maybe one more time in a rerun again. Like, no one cares that much except for total weirdos. Again, if you were a voting age in 1960, you're currently older than Joe Biden. And like, so...
Can I just say, if you're going to have an ad that says happy days are here again, maybe don't use an ad from before the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
That might be like if you want to say like, hey, let's go back to like how it was with Obama, like, maybe like buy that a little bit, but yeah, like 1960, it wasn't super great for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it was a super transitional time too, where it's like the 50s, where it was only, again, like the thing the last week, talking about how, you know, or maybe we said this off camera, but talking about like Russia being like, well, it's great for some people in the way that this country's great for some people. It's just that in Russia it's way less people or whatever. But it's like, you know, here in the 1950s, it's like everybody was doing great. I'm like, well, not everybody. It's just like your great grandpa was, but not. You know, a lot of people were, there was kind of a caste system. It wasn't very cool. But then, oh God, that also reminds me, there's an episode of The Simpsons where they're complaining about how outdated all their school books were because they referred to the civil rights movement as troubles ahead. Which at the time of that commercial was like, it's a troubles a brewing, or whatever it was. The water's going to get a little choppy here. Yeah, it's so confusing. Who wants to go back to 1960? Because either it was before things started getting more fair for other people, or after everything started getting great for whoever you were, you know, stop being great for whoever you're aiming this at, or whatever. Just like if you were well-to-do white people, you know, there's no rules about. Then there was no rules about which secretaries you could shit on while they blew somebody like that. You know, there was no HR department in 1956, like.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on and say that 1960, that wealthy white males were the only ones who could get away with pooping on somebody.
Yeah, just like
I think that's
now.
Yeah.
As long as you're on the wrestling federation. But,
oh my God.
Yeah, like it's like, remember John F. Kennedy? We liked him, right? Well, here's like the kid of his brother, like, and you know, again, RFK's definitely, like, there's some things that I like about him. Like, he kind of goes against like BlackRock and like all these like giant, you know, monopolistic companies that are ruining everything. But he's also kind of a fruitcake when it comes to a bunch of other stuff. But the credit I will give that guy is that, like, we've been bringing up Reddit a lot recently, and his subreddit is completely controlled by like Quintal Pro bots. Like, like, because
What do you mean?
So whenever
Do tell.
I think we've talked about this at work a little bit. Whenever a candidate actually is like, we're gonna fuck with some big corporation's money, they'll do like, like Bernie Sanders or Rand Paul or whoever. They'll be filling stadiums, but you won't hear anything about them on the news because the news is owned by all these same giant things. So they're like, we're not going to give them any attention. But people who are like, we're a little bit of an outsider, but we're going to let all the giant $1 trillion companies just do whatever they want. That was Trump's move. He's like, I'm an outsider and I'm going to do things for the people, but I'm not really going to. So nobody's going to step in and squish down all my. They're gonna do nothing but talk about me because like there was not a single thing he ran on was ever like, we're gonna stop these people from taking advantage of these people. We're just kind of gonna go. We're gonna stop allowing kids to identify as a cat in public school and build some sort of Mexico wall that'll never happen. It's like, okay, great. It's all just nothing. But it was never like, oh, we're going to make insulin affordable. So it's like, like, no. And RFK, drifted towards that a little. So his subreddit there's like hardly any people. Like Andrew Yang's had millions of people, right?
Yeah.
He didn't even make it, all that far in that whole election or whatever. And at around this point in the process, his had like millions of people and stuff. And Robert F. Kennedy's has like 2,000 or something. And there's all these people that repeatedly are being like, I'll go in there and say something even kind of good about him. And then the moderators will like block me from it. And I'll be like, why are you blocking me? Isn't this thing about him? And it's like, whatever you just said doesn't help his chances any. And that's it. And it's like, it's so clearly astroturfed.
Really
like,
yeah.
And there's a lot of things on Reddit that are like that, where it's like, it's like, if there was a whole subreddit about the Chinese government being shitty, no, there's not anymore. Like that's, and you're like, why is that? It's like, oh, people just weren't that interested. I'm like, okay, yeah, you really think we're gonna believe that? No one on the internet wants to talk about the president of China or anything. Like that's,
It'll be interesting. What do you think he's gonna do if, because when Gary Johnson and Bill Weld ran in 2016. They started pushing up over 10% in the polls, which was the threshold you needed to make it on the debate stage. And so they changed that to 15%.
Just to move the goalpost?
Yeah, 100%. But I wonder, it's like, you kind of were able to get away with that once, because they also at that same time kind of ran a smear campaign on Gary Johnson that was like the weirdest thing, because he like didn't know where some city in Syria was or something like that. And then he was like, oh, well, this guy, you're going to have this guy be fucking president and he doesn't know where this city in Syria is? Every other person, including probably our current president?
Yeah,
no fucking idea.
Everybody running at that point, nobody knows where they are right now, in this election.
But RFK's at like 20% right now. So he's over that 15. Do you think they would move the goalpost again? Or do you think they would be at a point where, like, God, I don't know if we could get away with that twice in 10 years without just blatantly basically saying, you will never get an independent candidate in this country?
I guess maybe they just are going to have to admit. I think we've gotten to the place with whoever exactly they are, they have figured out that it doesn't. It's like, what's going to happen? People are going to complain on the internet for like a while. Like, what are the consequences for doing anything? That's why that is the scarier part of the Boring 20s, where it's very much getting to like, yeah, we're just doing this now. And it's like, what? Like, oh, you're canceled. Like, are we though? No, we're not. And it's like, oh, we're going to go block traffic on the freeway. And it's like, yeah, this time we're going to maybe have you run over with tanks. And it's like, well, if you do that, then we're gonna say some more bad things about you. Yeah, I think they've maybe figured out it's like, you can't do anything to us. Like, who cares? What are you gonna stop? Like, even like most people's business, like, we're not gonna support this media company anymore. It's like, okay, all our money comes from like Saudi real estate. Like, it just doesn't make a fucking difference. And I'm like, I think we're just sitting here waiting for everyone to kind of completely figure that out. Carlin said that. He was like, eventually they're gonna figure out that we don't need, it's going to be mask off brutal capitalism. Like, we don't need the dog and pony show and the theater and the colorful lights anymore. Like, it's just going to be like, we're going to just pull back the curtain and it's going to be a brick wall. And everyone's just going to be like, huh? And they're like, uh-huh, go back to work. Like, and that's going to be like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think it's like we better do something real quick to avoid that happening. I think it's like we're just headed that way now, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see if 1984 is accurate, where it's like, well, at this point, it's just a boot stomping in a human face over and over again, and there's absolutely nothing that we can do about it. Or if, like, okay, it got like that, and then some, like, fun stuff happened. Then some, like, weird underground, like Eastern European rave kids that make ecstasy and or nerve gas, depending on what's being called for, and reprogram predator drones that they like stole, start going like, no, we're gonna make a real problem for you now, because see, you just made it so that now we don't have anything to lose, and a lot of us are too old and fat and stupid and lazy to really do anything about it. But there might be some 25-year-olds out there that are dangerously good at some things that aren't a good idea right now, because it's still, they haven't shown us the brick wall and said, what are you going to do about it quite yet?
Yeah.
But it's like, I think, and I don't want this because I want to live a comfortable and aimless life until the end of my days. That's kind of what I'm looking for now. Different things than when I was younger. But there are people who are probably a bit more like me when I was their age who are going to go, yeah, but now, like, we have access to, like, we could just crash all the computers that control everyone's credit scores or something, and just kind of be like, yeah, now is the time for that then, I guess, since this is how it's going to be. Or whatever. And so it's hard to have a election season debate without talking about the end of election seasons for the next couple of decades, one way or another.
Yeah, I didn't. Which brought me to, it brings me to something else I wanted to bring up too about politicians, is the whole shut the fuck up rule.
Oh, yeah.
Where I bring this up because you just made me think of this, that at the fucking Iowa caucus, Trump literally said, I'm going to be president for another 4 years, and, who knows, maybe beyond that.
Yeah. I see, that's the thing. The thing where I'm like, kind of like, there's no way up at this point, like, up and out. The one thing I will say to everybody that just is always way too quick and excited to just go like, well, guess, it's like, Biden got something wrong. He's like, well, it's got to be Trump then. And it's like, I thought you weren't super into Trump. Like, no, both sides are bad, but it should probably be true. Like the weird, like, no one will admit to it anymore, but they're just kind of like, yeah. And so it's like, well, what has he really got planned that's so bad? And that Project 2025 thing is kind of like, hey, that's concerning. Like, rather than a slow decline into cyberpunk horror over the next 10 years, they're like, yeah, we're just going to, like, do this immediately when we get the chance. And I'm like, okay, I understand that the status quo isn't great, but, like, I don't know that it's, like, the same or worse than letting that happen. That seems like it's pretty... And if you don't know what it is, just go look it up. It's explained better than I can, but it's just kind of like... It's fascist playbook. It's just like, this is literally the on the books plan. If Trump wins again, we're just gonna like oust people and make sure that there's just basically never an election again, and that the absolute craziest. And I don't mean like a fiscally conservative, reasonable person that I'm sure we all know, or someone who's a little center-right by European standards, which would probably be an insane socialist by American standards. But still, like, people who are like, well, I'm a little conservative when it comes to certain things, like the tax code. Like, okay, yeah, not them. No. They're not going to love what happens if that goes down. It's all just like the craziest people that are a bad example that make everyone else look bad are going to be just completely running the show at the tip of a gun. Like, that's not super awesome.
Well, do you think then too, the reason I also bring up what's his name making the debates, RFK, is like, do you think he could be a rational enough person on the debate stage to sway himself getting voted? Because the way Biden looks right now, like, it's just like, I don't actually have that big of a problem with, like, what Biden probably does or doesn't do on his day-to-day. It's more just like the debate stage is going to crush him this time around.
Yeah, well, it will. Or I think the thing is, here's what I think about, like, RFK's chances, I guess, is that anyone that would normally vote for Biden is just like, can we please keep our shit together? I'm not going to try to go for anybody else here. Yeah. We're just, for God's sake, like, he'll die. It'll be Kamala Harris, but the same people will just basically be in charge anyways. Fine. Trump's scary, dangerous, and is like a cult under him. It's not great. And we all know that anybody voting for Trump is just going to do it no matter what anybody says. So it's like, I don't really feel like he could move the needle at all, literally, unless both of them die. And then it's just going to be him versus I don't know who else.
But you don't think so if he actually got into the debates?
I don't think anybody cares. I mean, I want the truth to be that if someone reasonable won the debates.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody's cares about the debates right now, but I do weirdly wonder if people would all of a sudden care about the debates this year if it was the first time in how long that there's actually been a third party
maybe
that was allowed there. You know what I mean?
That would be kind of big news, because if the guy again gets up to this percentage threshold that's even higher than other people that they had to move the bar to try to avoid.
Yeah, exactly.
Could he be disruptive enough? I think
I mostly like him for the shit that
I just want to see
you're talking
that.
about that he'll actually speak a little bit of truth about the giant investment firms that are trying to buy up all the real estate and all the companies and
a few people that share his last name also kind of got into that a little bit, and they all seem to have magically been shot.
I mean,
that's. Yeah.
He also, I will say, even though, it seems like his voice thing doesn't really, affect him too much other than his voice, but he seems like he's way more fit.
Oh,
than the other two guys.
More fit than those two guys, yeah. And that's what I want to experience, because Trump he's not even the guy that he used to be.
In
2015, he's, I just
want to know why can't we get, somebody better? Why does it just... At least give me somebody that I want to get raped by.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and you answered the question right there. We have basically no choice but to pick from celebrities now. Just people don't have name recognition. It's people know who Joe Biden is, and people obviously know who Trump is, and everyone's kind of okay. It's if you just pick somebody, it's well, who is this? Yeah. It literally it would have to be Vince McMahon or something. Oh, we know who that guy is. He's got a lot of money. I like wrestling. He shits on people, but whatever. Yeah. I think that's sort of the issue with that high level of an office. Because not as many people vote in small local elections, which I think is bad. But
it's probably where your vote makes
it does
more of a difference.
It does, dude.
Much less beta behavior there.
Yeah, it's less beta to vote locally, but I feel okay saying that because nobody's going to. There's going to be but our Ward 4 City Council person, Latricia Vita, who got reelected this November, and I voted for. But the thing is she won and then won again. I would say almost directly because we have ranked choice voting in at least the certain level of shit in Minneapolis or whatever. Not all of Minnesota for things. But ranked choice voting is something that should happen everywhere, and it just will never be allowed to because it would actually lead us to not having just totally horrible, weird candidates, because it eliminates what ranked choice voting does is eliminates the fear of throwing your vote away. So you go, my first choice, for example, in this, if you're well, I don't want him stealing votes from Biden or whoever RFK would be. He kind of goes back and forth on who.
I mean,
but you go, well, I'd like it to be him. So I'll write him in as one. But then my second choice is Biden just in case or whatever. And that is how third parties end up who are probably better choices. Because locally, that did happen because we had Latricia, for example, is and she actually alluded to perhaps watching this podcast. No, I'm sure not regularly. I think she just watched one when she found out who I was because of the neighborhood association. But it terrified me because I'm well, what did you randomly click on there? Me talking about how hot Ghislaine Maxwell is? What? But either way, she seemed happy to talk to me, so it couldn't have been that bad. Or that is what she watched, and she's hey, you want to get into politics too? I'm oh no. But either way, she is someone who is on she's kind of like a left leaning person or whatever, but she's also we don't want people living in tents in your front. You're like the Tim Dillon thing you'd referenced before we started. But like, yeah, but that guy's strangling my kids in the front yard. It's like, well, he's just going through a hard time. She don't have no time for that shit. Like, she's very much like, the cops should not just be shooting people, but you know what? If they are carjacking you, they should be shooting those people. Like, that's like kind of her. I mean, that's a gross misrepresentation, but it's kind of how she makes me feel. I feel a little bit safer where it's like, you don't want crazy shit. It's not like voting for the Republican that wants to rule you like a king and brutalize anyone that jaywalks or whatever. But it is also not like voting for someone who's like, well, you know, have we tried talking to the guy that's pistol whipping you and stealing your groceries about his trauma, you know? Like, that is not her deal. We did have a candidate like that who fucking absolutely lost. And that's what ranks it. So, you know, we didn't end up with Biden or Trump locally, which I think without that, we might have. Like, Latricia might not have really been the choice for people. You know, they were like, well, we want either the bigger Democrat or at least her.
I think that's
what put her in office, I think.
I think ranked choice is what they did in the last New York City mayoral election.
Did they?
I think that's how Eric Adams got elected.
How do we feel about him? I don't know much about New York City
it seems like
politics.
He
anymore.
actually seems to me, and this also, you'll have to read more about him because what's interesting to me about him is he seems like the perfect Gotham City, like,
that's good,
villain / mayor, because if you look it up, there's a lot of like talk about corruption of just not anything like horrible, but just your standard greasy New York City mayor, paying off this guy and paying my buddy over here and no bid contracts over there, like that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, it's like he also, I think in the ranked choice thing, what he spoke to a lot of people about was that he was a former cop. And, you know, I think post-COVID, obviously for a variety of reasons, like crime did sort of get pushed to the front of people's minds for...
It went way the fuck up is partially why that is. Like, it's been a lot quieter around here in the past year since the fucking ATF just busted all these gang leaders and stuff, and everyone's like, well, you know, economically maybe, and I'm like, it got quiet the day after that happened.
But I also feel like it had overall, you know, there was a big spike, but like I don't know that spike just like went up and then stayed there.
No,
everywhere or anything like that.
It really didn't. Here it's ramped way off.
Yeah,
which is
but
good.
I don't know. I think like ranked choice was kind of what got him elected because I think he was running as a Democrat against whoever was the deputy mayor for Bill de Blasio, some lady, Maya Wiley, I forget her name.
Okay.
But either way, but I think she was kind of initially the favorite, and ranked choice I think was kind of why he ended up getting in there.
It really allows you to take a chance.
Yeah.
Take a chance on me, as Abba said, you know, like, and it's like it's used all over the rest of the world in places that are sort of nicer than here. They don't have it in Russia, actually.
Yeah.
Where everyone's favorite disavowed Fox News guy recently interviewed Vladimir Putin, who, I like a good former murderous KGB head rising to be like the crooked president of an evil country. Like, you know, again, in a storybook way that's all lots of fun.
Oh, yeah.
But in a very realistic way where there's people here that are like, that's the right way to do it, you know, over there. And you're like, well, hang on a second.
I believe Tucker said that he was radicalized against our leaders.
That's ironic because that was his job to do to other people for here a really long time. And Russia just made him decide to get a little high from his own supply for once, I guess. So, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, why don't we have a violent oligarchy that just keeps everybody different? You know, it's like being gay is still like an executable crime in Russia. And like the idea that we even vaguely consider that a first world country is a joke. And technically they're kind of not. Russia started doing better like a decade or so ago because they flipped over to what is generally known there's nothing funny about this, I'm sorry. They switched over to something generally known as a third world economy where they're more of a raw material exporter rather than like, you know, America or an Asian country that's like, oh, we have new inventions and we take those materials and make them into things and not just cheap things like China. I mean, China's obviously a first world country, but, you know, like innovation and action rather than just going here's copper. That's like we're a third world country that's doing kind of better. And I mean, it worked out for them, but it's just sort of an admission that that's what they are. You know, they're a third world country run by like a handful of oligarchs that are just never going to let go of power. And that's what Tucker Carlson is like, well, that's cool. Let's do that here.
I've wondered too, like, I mean, separate to the guy that just died in prison that was his opposition leader, he also, like, that other guy that was trying to go against him in the Ukraine war from the Wagner group or whatever, like, his plane magically went down.
Oh, yeah.
Yuri Prigozhin, was that his name?
Yep, some Prigozhin, I think. I don't know. Yuri, probably. That's a good Russian name. Like Yuri, who was the guy? One of the Russian space guys was Yuri something. Yeah. Great Russian name. But, yeah, like, he...
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, I wonder, though, like, with Putin, do you think that he is obviously awful, but is he, I wonder this in situations like that, is he the best of a bad situation?
See, that's what people
like, that's what I never know.
People have said that about, like, we hope that maybe he'll finally get his, or he'll, like, you know, he'll get old and die someday, and it's like the fucking power vacuum.
Yeah, it's like, who fills that vacuum when he dies?
I don't know. Like, it's not going to be some opposition guy. It's going to be some other weird former KGB goon who's just like 10 years younger or something. Or it's an insane coup by somebody like the guy that ran the Wagner group, which is a horrible, like, murderous, like, just beheading militia type thing. It's not good. I remember when everyone was like, ooh, they're going to go and razzle-dazzle things up in the Ukraine a little bit, and it's like, hey guys, just because you're the enemy of my enemy, it's like, yeah, but these guys are not cool. No. Like, we don't really want them having the control over nuclear weapons. They are a lot worse than Putin, I mean, theoretically. But I gotta wonder if Putin kind of, like, you know, he's older. He used to be the guy that would strangle people for the KGB or whatever, and it's like...
Really like to poison people.
It's such a good... There's so much poison in Russia. There's so many old pieces of, like, Chernobyl-grade plutonium laying around that you can just chuck through someone's back window and wait for him to get cancer a week later and die. I mean, it's just the move. It's like, I didn't hear any gunfire, you know? Like, big-time poisoner. It's like probably how he...
Yeah,
it's such a both a violent and simple country in a way that it's just kind of like he figured out to poison people, make him the head of the KGB. You could be president someday if you poison all the right people, you know. And that's the thing. Crashing that dude's plane must have been like put a little twinkle back in Putin's eye. Like there's not, you know what I mean? Like he used to murder. He was a hands-on guy when he started.
He was whistling on his way to brush his teeth down.
Oh yeah, it's lonely at the top. And you got, you know, it's like you're the president of Russia. Russia's clearly not going to be the kind of thing that takes over. You know, like the Ukraine thing's a quagmire. It's like one of the things America would do. You know, it's like this is a waste of time that's going nowhere, and you know, and resources and stuff. It's like you're never gonna take the Balkans back. You're never gonna, like, you know, the chunks of the mainland that Russia or that Japan sort of has. You're never gonna get that away from them. Yeah. You're never gonna be able to do anything about NATO or the UN or whatever. And if you ever cross America, you're just getting fucking turned into a skating rink. Yeah. But like, you know what you can do? If some guy mouths off to you, you can get that plane crashed. And that's just gotta feel so much like the good old days. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was probably like, if I could do it, I'd get down and do the, like, he's like, I can't anymore, I can't. But you know, let's all try. Yeah. Just a little bit. I love...
Maybe Putin could move here and run for president.
He would win.
Tucker could be his press secretary.
Oh, he would, yeah. He'd be like, you want to be my minister of propaganda? You do it here already, you stupid idiot. Like, he would be so rude to him too, because he mouthed off to him in the interview. He was just like,
he mouthed off after the interview. He said that he was really surprised that Tucker asked him such weak questions.
Yeah, he made it well known that he's like, look, normally I have journalists strangled to death and put in the trunk of a car.
Yeah, so why would you possibly ask me weak questions?
Like, I like, if you were someone that did, you know, it's like, obviously Putin's biggest enemy has been the CIA probably forever, but he probably has some sort of, like, Red Baron, like respect for them a little bit, and he's just like, oh, yes, I hate the CIA. They're a pain in my ass, but they are a fucking noble adversary, and you, sir, are no CIA. You are a journalist. You ask questions. You try to expose me to who? People on the Twitter, what are they going to cancel me? I will have you cut into little pieces, you baby man. Go back to America and shit your diaper on a playground. Like, that's what Putin thinks of
I'll tell
anybody.
You what, if he actually said that to me, I would be very, very, very scared until the second that my plane landed somewhere else.
Landed and I got access to a Geiger counter to make sure that he didn't sneak anything into my underwear drawer that's going to give me radiation poisoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I get, like, I don't have, it's like I almost want to have respect for Tucker Carlson, because if someone was like, look, I love the idea of, I like taking chances and opportunities when they say yes to things, but if someone was like, John, do you want to go to Russia and do your podcast with Vladimir Putin? I would feel very much obligated to go, I should do this, but I think I'm going to have to pass. Like, my nerves would be shot.
Yeah.
Like, that guy could just have you absolutely killed and be like, oops, he tripped. It's like, it's just, and would, if it went a little sideways. And I would, I would have loved to, like, have, like, Putin should have a little fun. Like, he should have really just, like, given it to Carlson more.
What is it about Tucker? Because the weird thing I've seen is, like, he is one of probably the only people that was on Fox for a long time that would legitimately call out at least the warmonger part of the Republican Party. He would literally call, like, Lindsey Graham a baby, like, every day about, like, because he didn't want to let us go bomb places. And I'm making no bones for Tucker, but, like, his ratings were always, like, fucking insane. Like, clearly people were watching his show way more than anybody else's. And it's like,
he was, like, the most popular.
Yeah, but, like, what was it about that? Because it's like, he kind of gave this facade of being like, oh, I'm just kind of down the middle and calling it like I say, which obviously was not the case. But, like, I don't understand, like, I get that he's propaganda, but I can almost see the propaganda, but I don't know why he's so good at it.
Oh, I think I can give you a afternoon drunk answer, and
if that makes sense. I'm not trying not to, like, ramble, but it's
no. You're making very perfect sense, and it's giving me all kinds of bad ideas. Like, I think which is what we're supposed to do here. I think. In all seriousness, I think he gives people plausible deniability. I think he did such a good job at being at selling the idea that he was kind of being like a down the middle, like, I'm just asking questions. I don't know, my hat in my hand here. I just would love to know what's happening, wouldn't you? And then so, like, the people who are, again, like how everyone kind of, like, Joe Rogan just kind of like I don't, he's like, I'm not want to say that I'm a giant fan of Trump, but I'd be like, well, I guess it's got to be him. I guess if it defaults to neither candidate, well, then it's automatically Trump. I don't want it like that, whatever. But it's for everybody that doesn't, they know it's a joke now. They, like, there was people who were like, no, like, I'm a right-wing guy, but it's like, it's embarrassing, to be associated with these, like, people who are just culty, weird, sad, gross, backwards, like, and they're all grifters. It's like, none of them believe in, like what's it, Lauren Boebert's just, like, jerking off like this big Democrat guy in a Beetlejuice play, and it's like, there's, like, so many different things in that sentence that go against everything she normally says, and just people
Which is crazy, because it's like, that's the Lauren Boebert I want to know.
Well, that's the thing. The honest version I would vote for. Like, I'd just be like, yeah. He's like, no, the children and the da-da-da. Like, and it's like, it's so clearly like a scam by people who don't even really mean it, that people are, like, pledging money to and buying commemorative plates of and stuff, that you have to be, if you're like, I'm kind of pretty conservative though, and I'm not really going to change my views, but God, it's embarrassing. So Tucker Carlson just gives you sort of like, well, he's just he's curious by nature, and I have questions about chemtrails and how the Democrats put him there too. Like, I don't know, I'm not trying to ruin Thanksgiving. I just he allows you to go, like, maybe people just need to get to know Trump better. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't have, they're like pushing the commemorative plates in a closet. Like, yeah. And you want him to win because you're a psychopath, but it's like, your grandkids don't have to know. But the thing is like, everybody knows that Tucker Carlson is just, like, we all know, but it's like, he gives everybody it's like a kid that gets caught stealing a cookie from the cookie jar, but they really think they fooled you, but you're 30 years old and they're
Yeah.
6.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
But
see,
how does he get away with it?
Be-
He gets away with that's what I want to know where his power
because the
is.
6-year-olds think they've won. It doesn't matter how many moms go like, there's chocolate in your hair. Like, I know what you're doing here. And they're just like, it was a dinosaur. And it's like the guy on TV that's like, did you use the dinosaur line? Your mom doesn't know. And it's like, yeah, she put me in my room and it was a witch hunt. You know, it's like, it doesn't, because like everybody reasonable, it doesn't have to work for us. We'd be like, this guy's kind of full of shit. And they're like, well, no. And it's like, so we're done talking about it then. Cool. Like but yeah, that's his thing, is he just seems so deflectively kind of like, well, I don't, you know, just, I think that maybe it's, call me crazy, but you know, the teachers shouldn't be raping the students. It's like, no, they're just teaching them about sex ed. It's like, well, that's sex ed, you know what? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't really matter. It's just I'm concerned. And are you concerned? That sounds bad. And they're like, okay, that's it. That's all you need to do. And then we're all like, I don't know if that makes any sense. They're like, you say that about everything I say. I think it's because you don't like me. Nah, you never call. He's just there for that. Like, it just doesn't matter. It's the same thing where it's like, it doesn't matter that, oh, maybe they'll move the cold post so RFK can't be a third-party candidate. They'll just be like, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, yeah, we're going to watch Tucker Carlson together while you sit on my lap, and we're going to just pull back the curtain, and there's the brick wall of mask off capitalism, where we're like, yeah, okay, you know, or we'll just take away what's even left of Obamacare. Or you could just shut up. How about that? You going to protest about that?
God, we're fucked.
How about next time we run you over with a tank when you block the freeway? How do you like that? Like that? That's just the. I think I already said that, but yeah, I think that's kind of where we are. Where it is just like it's unavoidable with the like. By the way, this is an interesting thing too. The one thing. There's a lot of conjecture, and there's a lot of like the stupid made-up culture war crap and everything. That's very, you could argue about it around in circles forever, or whatever. But one of the things that like no one can argue with, and I'm actually curious about this. Like, there's people in our lives that are a little on the other side of the old goalpost, and it's like the fact that the people with all the money have so much more of it than everyone else, and the divide has gotten like to a historically like unprecedented thing or whatever. Like, I don't really know what the counter are. It's like, okay, is that good? Why is that? And it's like, is it immigrants? Is it somehow that's why Jeff Bezos has all the money, more than he could ever spend in a billion lifetimes? Is that good? Do we want to stop that? Do you think you're going to be over here on this line with like the 14 other people that are there? Like, where you're like, oh, it's because people don't work 50 hours weeks anymore. Like, what is it? What is the counter argument to like, well, this can't possibly be good because, see, you're down here with me, like, you know, I'm making like, Bong cartoons and you're driving a forklift, but we're probably making about the same amount of money after taxes. We're never going to be up here.
Yeah.
Like, so what? And I bring that up because it's like, I think like that's what happens right before they go, hi, yeah, we're not going to really worry if you don't think whatever is fair anymore, because, again, you're just going to have a bayonet in your back if you're like, why didn't Robert F. Kennedy? It's like, get in the trench. Like, it's just like, yeah, we're done with this now because 3 dudes have all the money and, like, 5 companies own all the other companies. And it's just like, no, you have freedom of speech, and you can just yell into the void.
I knew deep down inside it wouldn't happen, but I was hoping that when Elon Musk bought Twitter that it would sort of like showcase in the media the absurdity of the stock market and the billionaire class, because it is kind of crazy if you have a company with shareholders and just one person can just come in and buy that, or buy, you know what I mean? Just essentially buy. I don't want to say it was a hostile buyout, but sort of like, you know.
Oh, they were happy to take his money because that company is not actually worth anywhere near what he bought it for.
Yeah, they were lying about that. But you know what I mean? Was just like, it makes me think about like the Bezos and the Elon Musks is like, you know, Walmart was another prime example where like a ton of their fucking employees have to be on government assistance.
Yeah, we're paying
for
them to be. I don't even shop there, and I'm paying for their employees.
Yeah,
so that they can have more yachts or whatever. Like,
yeah, and I think the problem that a lot of Americans, certainly that I have, is like, I'm not even saying don't have the yacht. I'm just saying, like, can we pay people like enough to not starve, and you maybe just have 8 yachts instead of 9?
That's what
you know what I mean. I broad brushstrokes a little, but it's like the amount of profit and the amount of difference there is like absurd to where like you could still be filthy rich. We're all okay with that. It's like, I know there you'll get a few fringe college kids that'll be mad about that, but for the most part, it's like everybody's fine with there being somebody that does better than me or whatever else. But I just don't understand why it has to be like in this country so far of a divide.
It's. I mean,
it's just human nature, I guess.
Psychopathy is a big part. Again, like that's who ends up getting there is people who just absolutely are unhinged and like. But the other thing is that really when there's just so little money in the hand, it's really what happens right before things kind of fall apart in a weird way, where it's like hyper inflation. So even people with $100 billion are kind of broke now because because again, the stock market's absurd. It's all imaginary. Yeah. It's all crazy. It's like right now, it's like we're getting back into, again, there's a lot of parallels between the roaring 20s and the boring 20s. It's like we're getting into the Gilded Age where it's like a few people have so much of the money that you can't even spend it on anything anymore. Like, what are you going to do with that? And, like, it's like, okay, just make sure that no one else ever has any. That's about all it's good for at a certain point. And that's absolutely just terrifying. It's just like, I don't know. We're going to go through, like, a really wild... I wish it had happened, like, half a generation before I was born, because I don't want to deal with it, and I'm certainly going to be too old to deal with it. But just, like, a cyberpunk fucking hell future for, like... Because that is the thing. Money is all made up. It's like the Spacebucks thing from South Park.
Yeah.
Or it's like, like you and I mean, fucking I have, like, at this point, because I was a little bit wise to it, where instead of just jamming everything into a savings account, I definitely, like, have a pretty, like, okay for nobody who doesn't make a lot of money, like a stock portfolio where it's like, there's just more money in there all the time. Because I kind of was a little... We're going through, like, a time of it's been going up a lot, and I get that. It'll go down at one point, too. Yeah. It's fine. But, like, I get, like, dividends from things, and I made sure to kind of be more heavily invested in those. So it's just, like I get, like, $100 for no reason. Like, normally that's, like, a day of work for somebody, and it's, like... It's not $10,000, like, a month, but it's, like, $100 or so a quarter or something, and it's, like... that doesn't make any sense. I didn't do anything to do that other than to put money I already had over there instead of over here or wherever.
But that still also is like a very different level than like, I just really need that 14th vacation home in southern Italy.
Oh, my point with that is that scalably, like I've bought into the very like bottom end of the same process that gives them that 4th vacation home. Even though it doesn't make any sense. Like, no work has been done. No, it's just like if you have $10 million and you invest it this kind of the same way I've invested, some amount of thousands of dollars, you're getting tens of thousands of dollars for no reason all the time. It's like, did you put in an 80-hour week? Like everyone tells us to do. Like, no. Like, it's literally part of the same thing where... It's an unsustainable thing that doesn't make any sense. You can buy real goods and services with money that kind of like comes from like other people's work. You don't even have any idea who, when you're like, oh yeah, I kind of have this, I invested in this Vanguard portfolio of a few different commodities or whatever. And it's like, there's people in coal mines somewhere giving me that $100 or someone else $1 million. And it's like, it's just because, like, I made enough music videos where some of that money I made goes into, like, this thing that makes more money automatically, and you fucking ripped off enough people at a huge level to dump it into that, and you just get paid for, like... It is totally crazy, and it's going to turn into a thing where everyone all at once eventually goes, this isn't real anymore, now what?
Do you think it could get reined back in to a point where, like, you could start straddling that line of capitalism without it becoming... over-the-top corporatism, or do you think that's always going to be an inevitability, or do you think like it's just like we're on the path we're on until it just goes over the edge? Like, do you think we're too far gone?
We're in a cycle where I think this happens. Like it has, and it does in other parts of the world. Here's what I'll say:
Like fall of the empire.
The minute that propaganda stops working on most people, we won't have this problem anymore. Here's the thing with that: that is
Might have some other ones.
never, ever going to happen. Like. It literally, if everyone knew exactly how it really was, and they acted accordingly whenever given a decision to make about whatever, like what are we gonna get together and try to make happen, or who are we gonna put in charge of this or whatever, because the thing is basically like some kind of capitalism that has a lot of regulation is the only way to actually live in a reasonable society. Like just a completely unhinged free market thing. All the money just eventually goes to the top, and then everybody else gets not to make any decisions anymore or whatever. That's just where it goes. It always goes that way, even in almost prehistory of royal families and things. And we've talked about this months ago. Like it's just where it goes. They had the most land. They took land from other people, paid some people a little bit of money to behead everyone else that went against them, and until now it's like, oh, it's the king and the queen. It's like, no. They were just the Amazon of their time, except for it was a lot more brutal and stuff. But just slavery and murder and everything just made it so you owned all of the UK islands, and now it's a kingdom, you see. And we invented this thing called church, where they're like, well, why did this happen? Like, well, God decided, and you don't want God to be mad at you for disagreeing to you. Like, that's how we do it. And yeah, we live in a time where like more people than ever are pretty aware that that's insane, and then that's also what's happening again. But there's just not enough of them. There's just enough people buying, arguing with Elon Musk on Twitter, or buying Trump commemorative plates where he's like sitting in Jesus' lap while they drive a truck with AR-15s pointing out the window. That it's just, you're like, that's not. They're just gonna go, yeah. People are poor because they don't work enough or something, and they don't understand the stock market.
Jesus throwing down all that money on that foot fetish ad was pretty impressive too.
That I talked about that on my Super Bowl recap that had very little to do with football, but my favorite thing about that is like that organization spends tens of millions of dollars going to really nasty anti-LGBTQ. Not even like, we'd prefer that little kids didn't hear about it. Like, no. Conversion therapy, like driving people to suicide and stuff. Like really shitty stuff.
Yeah.
And so here's what it is. They make those commercials to appeal to center-left people that have fallen away from the church, to be like, see, we're into what the real gospel teachings were, which is accurate. Yeah, it's about acceptance and whatever. But they don't believe that, and they do all kinds of things to like give money to groups that discriminate against people horribly. But the irony being that everyone that the commercial was aimed at sees through that and is like, no, you people are full of shit. I know what you're trying to do here. But then a bunch of religious people were like, Jesus wasn't woke. What the fuck? Like they fell for it and got mad at it. So it's like
everything you just said makes me think that they're the Tucker Carlson of churches.
I think that's what they're trying to do. I think it's honestly just being like, it's cool to go back to church.
This is like the same parallel, pretty much.
Yeah. But it's if you ever wondered, are the religious fanatics right and I'm the one that's crazy? It's like their literal plan was to fool me. And I'm like, no, because I know what your organization does, because I look into things and I think about stuff. And then the people who are supposed to be on your side got fooled about it. They're like, hey, that's not like a real... Like, if you're ever wondering who's really right at that argument during Thanksgiving, it is not your uncle. Yeah. It's like, you could say that either side's kind of stupid. I'm like, yeah. That commercial and the reaction to it really kind of cemented some things for me. Yeah. Maybe Jesus was working in their heart, where they were like, John just wants to feel more comfortable in his vitriol against annoying rural people. Like, I don't know.
I think the annoying part now is that everybody's so fucking stupid that most people are wrong about everything. Regardless of ideology or religion, political,
Yeah. And
we're all just wrong about everything.
That's the thing. Like, I stand by my conviction of, if propaganda the laundry's done. If propaganda stopped working on people, That's the literal, which is impossible. That's the only way things would ever slowly get better. But unfortunately, A, everyone is extremely gullible and is wrong about everything all the time. B, we've only gotten better at propaganda, and AI is going to make that just a real motherfucker.
Once Skynet is... They don't even need to drop nukes on all the cities.
Oh, there won't be a single shot fired.
A Skynet of propaganda, they'll be in business.
It's going to be so good that
it'll be inspiring.
There won't, there will not have to be a single T-800 with a machine gun smashing through your wall. And the only problem I really have with any of that is if people actually became immune somehow to even hyper AI propaganda, I would be out of a job.
The Reverend John Wheeler podcast takes zero responsibility for the words, actions, or ideas of its host, guests, or listeners. Though the people on the screen may at times be speaking directly to you and may occasionally give you direct calls to action, neither Reverend John nor the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge are under any moral or legal obligation to answer for the potentially disastrous repercussions that may arise if you are stupid enough to actually follow the orders of a raving lunatic. Think for yourself and do whatever you want, because you're on your own. If anyone ever tries to sue this podcast, black SUVs will converge on your location in the darkness of night and you will never be seen again. Remember to like and subscribe.